take refuge in Buddha. I take refuge in Dharma. I take refuge in Sangha. This is the March Sesshin 2024, the first talk. We have some people who are pretty much brand new-ish to Sesshin practice. And we have many people who are seasoned-ish in Sesshin practice. And for all of us, something calls us here. Something is still calling us here. Something keeps us coming back, despite all of this first and second day kind of stuff that you just have to go through. There's some kind of a stirring within. Something in the heart being resonated by what? A heartache, a tangled life, the promise of ending suffering. What does that mean? The great bodhisattvas of loss and illness and distress urging us to depth. The great bodhisattvas of vastness, brightness, of everything having its place. Where? How such a mind? Is that really possible? Is this all made up? We're called here by a remembered taste of something real. Something real we're not finding out there, wherever out there is. A remembered taste, an ongoing taste, a glimpse. It's enough. It's enough to have a glimpse of what this is all about. It's enough to have a glimpse to make it the center of your life sometimes. We might be called here from an opening that now becomes a basis of faith. It's no longer speculation, the liberation of the Dharma, but we know there's further discovery. A promise of liberation, a promise of love. And so we begin this process of settling in. And there's something, sometimes I feel like I'm cheating because I've done this enough that my bones are used to it and my muscles have realigned and I know how to wiggle just right so that if my ankle falls asleep, it's not that bad. And you get your nap timing down and you figure out how to poop regularly and it's all smooth. And it's not so smooth for those who are newer. And so you are in my and Enryu's heart. We're silently caring for you, cheering you on, hoping to make an offering with these teachings. But even if you've done this for a long time, settling in is a process. There's an invitation to yield to this shape of life. And right from the beginning, we witness our flexibility and the absence of flexibility. Right from the beginning, this container calls forth our resistances, reflects our opinions to us, how entrenched or not those are. We witness how we stick, we witness how we flow, everything in between. And the point is not to back you into a corner, but it's good to be backed into a corner. It's good to see ourselves. The ability to yield to this shape, sometimes very uncomfortable, is now the very same yielding that I do in my everyday life. That frees me up in situations I would rather not be in. It's the same skill. So in Sesshin, each moment invites yielding to the task of each thing we do. When it's time to eat, we eat. When it's time to rest, we rest. When it's time to sit, we sit. And it invites yielding to our current state of feeling, our current physicality. I used to like a word like surrender, but I think surrender is a little too floppy. It evokes a sense of giving in, whereas yielding is an alignment with what is. And witness the friction of being disaligned with what is in your body, your feeling, your mind state, period after period, day after day. You have to witness that friction. That's very important. And there's no way to do this perfectly. There's no way to do this without discomfort. Accepting that relieves a lot of discomfort. So the great yielding is yielding fixated mind for unfixated mind. The great yielding is liberating oppositional, self-referential mind for non-separation mind. And that's helped by the difficulties we have, actually. These difficulties are actually a great aid. But primarily, it's not about the difficulties. We step into this by being awareness. And all the subsets, all the different ways we practice, embody, engage awareness. Mindfulness of what the mind is up to. Mindfulness of what mind is up to. The watchfulness that curtails delusion. We're not letting our thinking just do whatever it does because we witness the consequence of that. And some people who are newer to the intensity of this container may be witnessing the consequences, or may witness the consequence of letting thinking go unchecked at a new level. Of course, you could blame the cushions, or me, or the lentils for your unhappiness. Of course you can. The weather, the shoe sew, the whatever. But we bear witness to how much the onus is right here. And so we practice the watchfulness that curtails indulging delusion. That's true out of the Zendo, that's true during Zazen. There's some function of mind that knows what's up. Sometimes we call that prajna. There's something without you thinking that actually can navigate and see clearly. It's already so. So mindfulness of what the mind is up to, on a very basic level, it's just the continual, relentless return. Just bringing attention back to the practice. Just relentless. If you commit to relentlessly doing that, your sesshin will mature. And you will taste something of the Dharma. We practice mindfulness of body through our posture and the Zen forms. We may or may not, Enryu and I emphasize listening with the body. Of course, we listen with the whole body mind. You can't help but do that. You can't help but sit here and have this field of sensation that we so put in a box and we so label and we so labor over and with this body. We can't help but inhabit it at a more and more subtle and thoroughgoing level, just because we're pervading this moment with awareness. And we could say we're using the mind for wakeful listening as the core practice we're doing, but in a way we're not using the mind, and that's the point. We're suspending use of the mind so that this is intimate, so that this is our being. No less your body than so in Sesshin and in Dharma in general, we use mind with intention, or we're used by it. Some people are even abused by their minds. The Buddha Dharma in some ways is this compassionate infusion, a compassionate insurrection of the intention to awaken. So we use mind with intention, and we intentionally stop using mind. It's two sides of a single coin. I want to clarify something that I feel is very important. Practice of Sesshin has psychological benefits, but its aim is not psychological. The practice of Sesshin brings clarity to our life navigation, but its aim is not clarifying your life direction. We're mustering a robust and steady enough listening, a clear and steady enough mind to let the self and the space that is shot through all the way become clear to us. And that is not psychological at all. It's not about becoming a better personality or a more functional fill in the blank. The healing of the Dharma is from a more fundamental level. So please don't work on yourself this week like a project that needs to be brought to completion. You're not like a house that needs to be remodeled and you come to the Zen monastery to remodel your house. The Buddha, upon awakening and realizing the simultaneous truths of no self and impermanence and karma at the most profound level, said, "House builder, I have seen through you. You will no longer erect this house." I'm paraphrasing, something like that. This process is deconstructive to lay bare the light of your nature. And then the personality, because you have a brain and a body, there's a personality. It comes back, but it comes back differently. It comes back informed. But the practice itself is just not about the personality. We kind of don't like that someone can be a total a-hole and still wake up. Well, they can't be a total a-hole. There's a lot of nuance there. So please don't take the problem that some part of you believes must be resolved and put that at the center of your mind. You will companion your loneliness. It will come and it will go. You will companion a sense of inner poverty if you have it. It will come and it will go. You will companion your sense of what the hell is life about? Does it have a meaning? That will come and it will go. Those fundamental existential textures and queries, they show up for us. But you don't want to orbit your particular narrative about why life isn't working. That won't work. That's my point here. That won't work. So, more simply said, Zazen is not a time for contemplating your life. You could say some part of the mind does that, right? We have a lapse in our focus, which everybody will, and that's not a problem. We have a lapse in our focus, and some part goes, oh, I really wonder if I should do so and such. Do such and such. Comes in. Okay. But investing and infusing your attention in that is definitely not the point. Because Zazen is inhabiting and permeating and penetrating the immediate flow of now. This texture. The immediate texture. And all thoughts and ideas about life, yours and mine, in this context are beside the point. They are beside the point. You cannot think your way out of what the Buddha meant by dukkha. So the good news, I think, is that we shelve the projects of self and world repair for a time, and we emerge with more clarity about those projects. Because of the shelving, because of the stepping back from the habituated perspectives that we entrench ourselves in our daily lives. We do get more clarity, but it's indirect. We put it on the shelf. So I invite you, and I invite myself, to trust that you don't need to work out your issues. You don't need to figure out the right door to walk through. We're entrusting the practice of settling the mind. And settling the mind is settling the mind in what is. That simplicity is rough for many of us. We're settling our mind in what is, not in some fabulous mystical dimension. You're settling your mind in exactly what is. I don't know what is for you, and I never will. Only you, right now, are tasting, hearing, feeling, being vibrated with what is. That's exactly what we settle our mind in. We settle our mind by putting aside past and future. The past, that which we can only see from one angle at a time, that which can always be seen from another. Perhaps that's the allure of turning it over, that we might get another angle on our past. Or the allure of rehashing our woundings with people year after year. Some hope that we'll get a new perspective on the past. But the past is irretrievable and unlivable. This is a basic existential fact that I think we could probably all agree in. It's unlivable and irretrievable. And yet, whatever it has been for us, how many moments have we lived? How many frames of being have we inhabited? All of that in some way is here as the depth of this heart mind. Somehow it's here informing where and how we see from. So whatever the past is, it's irretrievable, it's unlivable, and none of it is wasted or absent. Because here we are. In some sense, the cause, the result of the past. We put aside the past. We put aside the future, the never to arrive, because it's always the future. The never to arrive because always open and unknown. Concerned about the future, do Sesshin. It will maximize an excellent future because you embody a virtuous body, mind, and action. You embody a warm and wakeful stance towards yourself and your environment. The future always open and unknown, yet shaped by everything we're doing, moment by moment. And seeding our future selves and our future life, moment by moment, day by day, year by year. You can take the instruction in meditation, don't dwell on the past, let the future be the future. That's a very profound meditation in itself if we really just embody that. So we practice non-involvement with mentations about the past and the future. You don't have to crush or plug up or stop these different dimensions of your mind. Just don't be involved in them. Just let them move through without friction. Okay? Memories are coming up. Hold them lightly if you hold them at all. Planning mind is coming up. Just let that be. Then what's here opens up. The breadth of the moment. The breath of the moment. If we think about this practice of listening in stages, we're at the stage where we're dialing out the static and hearing the sounds of now. And we just keep bringing it back to a clear channel, making that effort to hear directly. And there's the basic and relentless work of returning and replacing attention. There's some relationship between how penetrating your sesshin is and how relentless you are with this practice. If every time you do kinhin or every time there's a break, you decide you're going to work on the project of my life and start daydreaming for an hour and a half, for the 10 minutes in this revolving, it's going to be an obstacle. We create a momentum of wakefulness. It gains power. So the basic work of returning and replacing attention, no matter what you're doing, no matter what you're doing. What are you hearing right now? Footsteps as we do kinhin. Sound of spoons and bowls. Sound of chewing food. Of distant breezes. And we're just coming back, we're coming back, we're coming back, and we're disrupting, and we're establishing ourselves in mindfulness in a way that is so different than how many of us live our everyday life. Many of us live in a shrouding swirl of thoughts about the past and the future, such that this moment almost doesn't exist. It only exists in order to serve the future moment, which never arrives. It only exists as a platform to worry about something that happened or rush towards something that might happen. So even this level of practice that has become kind of cliche for most of us, kind of roll our eyes if we see a "Be Here Now" bumper sticker. If we could embody "Be Here Now," there's a whole mass of unhappiness that would drop away. So when we talk about attention, we're talking about a basic faculty of illumination. We have 6 sense fields: thinking, tactile sensation, tasting, seeing, smelling, and hearing. We have 6 sense fields. In some sense, if we don't, get too finely nuanced with it, that's all we got in life. And attention is like a light that, if untrained, just moves around through the force of habit from aspect to aspect in that field, almost always avoiding the unpleasant and going towards the pleasant. In some ways, we're not any better than little bugs that the most simple organisms do the same thing. Go towards pleasure, avoid pain. That's what our attention tends to do. Seek stimulation, move away from what is not stimulating. Avoid too much stimulation, try to get to less stimulation. So there's this light that when it's lacking intentionality, it just moves around karmically. You could say it just moves around randomly from thing to thing. In a sense, we're just led by our conditioning. Someone else told us what we should pay attention to. So what we're doing at this kind of really elemental level is we're intending where our attention will go because we believe this will be beneficial. We're intending our attention, in this case, to rest in the sense field of sound because we have some confidence in the teachings of the Buddhas and the ancestors and many traditions of the benefits of concentration and wakefulness and resting the mind. And you've tasted that, so you know it's worth doing. But what is that? To concentrate, which would be like stacking moments of attention, what is that? I want to propose that it's sustaining the intention of attention. You're countering the habit of wandering, of mind just going, often it's just going in our own minds. You're countering that momentum with the force of intentionality. That's why, as you become ripened in your practice, concentration is nearly, if not completely, effortless. Because that intention has just become so natural. Your mind just is well trained. It just stays, more or less. Doesn't mean you don't have thoughts, but the light of attention is just so then, directed attention, concentration, is you sustaining attention, intention. In other words, you're applying your desire to be free. You're applying your desire to be free of just how boring this mind is, just how much of a box it is. Sustaining the intention of attention, intending attention, is your vow to wake up made real. Moment by moment. So this concentration is not some kind of clinical act. It's a freedom act. It's a loving act. If you have the contrast of ordinary fixated mind with unbounded mind, you know that to get clear of fixated mind is an act of liberation, is an act of love. So we leap clear of the monotony of our inner chatter into the chirp of a bird, into the sound of a bell, into the your own breath, a footstep. And the more concentrated, the more the light of attention is resting where we intend, the more of the Dharma is revealed. The more of the Dharma can be revealed. The less thought filtered, the more the suchness of each and everything, the Buddha of each and everything can be experienced. Apparently, the Buddha's mind was so unfixated, and many others that have followed in Buddha's footsteps, was so unfixated that the Buddha could see the causal stream of beings. He could behold somebody and see their state of mind and know where that was going to lead them and how they got to that place. You know, some of us have young people in our lives or children, and we have some reference point for that. We can see where their state of mind is going to lead them if they don't get clear on what's going on. So imagine that times 10,000. And so the Buddha says, from that point of view, I see nothing as damaging as an uncultivated mind or as an untrained mind. I see nothing as beneficial as a trained, as a cultivated mind. That's so countercultural. That's radically countercultural in a very materialistic world. It's good to know that intent absorption in the sounds of now is good. And one moment of that is one moment of practice as virtue. If you think, oh, okay, concentration, that's what I'm supposed to do, so therefore I have to enter some state, and now what comes along with that is assessing, am I or am I not in a concentrated state? How many moments does it take to count as concentration? Do I need to be experiencing level 9.3 samadhi that I read about, etc.? Then we begin to miss the point. And it's part of why Zen tradition doesn't talk so much about the stages of concentration. It's there. But one moment of absorption in this is good, and extending that is very good. And as all things are impermanent, it will be disrupted, it will be interrupted. There's electrical activity in your brain and brain stem. That is not a problem, but you come back. And yet there are factors of this deepening. So intentionality is the first one I've mentioned. The vow for awakening, your longing for depth, your longing to see if the Buddhas and ancestors are telling the truth, that's your primary power. That's actually your primary power. Your passion, your longing, your desire, your call. There's different flavors of it because we're all wired differently. But then there are other factors of deepening. We'll touch on them throughout. In some sense, they're different facets of the same thing, but. So the first one, I spoke about putting aside the past and the future. In other words, renounce indulging wandering mind. There are many teachings in contemplative traditions, different levels of renunciation. For example, renouncing non-virtue so that our heart isn't disturbed by the lies we're telling, or the things we're stealing, or the beings we're killing. We renounce non-virtue. We renounce having an overcomplicated life, like we've done in coming to Sesshin here. We renounce unnecessary complications so that we can taste the Buddha's light. And yet the essential renunciation, in my opinion, that's supported by those other two levels, is renouncing habitual wandering mind. And to keep renouncing it, and to keep renouncing it. Stories live in us. Echoes of previous selves and echoes of others live in us. Okay? Relate to it something like, "Not now, sweetheart." And kindly but relentlessly put it aside. "Not now, sweetheart." Some of us have or do talk to our children like that, or our nephews. Some of us don't. We're like, "Shut up, I'm trying to watch the news." That's not so helpful. Think about how that affects your kids in the long term. Be quiet, go get on your iPad. Kindly but relentlessly put aside. "Not now." Yeah. You don't even always have to go to that level of relating to your thoughts like that. You will be able to let them just sail through frictionlessly. You'll be able to be indifferent to them. Those are all skills you have and are developing. But sometimes to really shine the light of compassion inward is the right medicine. So your interior and how you relate to it, of course, is your business, not mine. I am not psychic. I do not know what you're thinking. I'm very grateful for that. But practice that clarifies liberation needs renunciation over and over of habitual mind. So then the next factor is to relax. It's dangerous to use the word relax because it so easily can be misinterpreted. The quality of relaxation is not a to-do list of unwinding tensions. It's not the project of, okay, let me learn to just be here where everything feels good in my body. Okay. You know, this kind of state where you're like wiggling a little bit and you're just trying to get it just right, and you're using the massager every break, and you're doing yoga every moment, and you're just trying to feel perfect on the cushion, and that's not going to work. Taking care of yourself, of course, and respecting your body, the divine vehicle of your body, of course. But that's not what I mean by relaxation. It's yielding to this embodied texture. You know, in Dharma, what we mean by relaxation or equanimity is not necessarily that our nervous system is smooth and clear and serene, but that we so allow the textures that are popping that it's just okay. In other words, we relax our aggression towards our own being. So we yield, we melt into the embodied texture that we are. You are this experience. Sometimes we take up you are, sometimes we take up you're not. Right now I'm saying you are your experience. It's not separate from whatever you are. So what does that do to try to avoid what you are? What's the effect of splitting off internally and saying this part of me is in the bad bucket? The relaxation is occupying the ground and space that you occupy. It's really just covering the ground you walk on, inhabiting the body that you are. It's a lot easier than the alternative. It doesn't always feel good. To actually be relaxed and be at ease means that we consent to not feeling good all the time, rather than living with the anxiety of always trying to fix our state. There's something with relaxation like that touches on, you can't practice a future moment. You can't practice past this moment, but some of us try. You can't bypass it. You can be a moment trying to bypass itself. That's always happening. So relaxation. Now there's an interesting duality that we cultivate in practice, and that is we're working on being totally yielding to what is, relaxed, and vividly awake at the same time. Right? Usually think of relaxation as a state of unconsciousness, as a kind of bubble bath, champagne kind of evening. The body can be very soft and yielding to what is, even the tensions, and yet the mind is crisply awake. It bears repeating that our meditation is not a descent into some kind of murky inwardness. For this reason, Zen ancestors have said the practice is done with your eyes open. People who've been around here for a while are probably tired of hearing me talk about the benefits of sitting with eyes open, but I do believe that's a superior way of practicing. Not the least of which is that these too are organs of listening. So we're not trying to blot out sense data. It may be that you become so absorbed in the soundscape that the sense of the world of sight, world of body sensation, definitely the world of thought, backgrounds, fades, even just drops out, and all there is bird sound filling the universe. All there is the wind through the bamboo. But you don't arrive there through trying to blot anything out. Our Zazen is not a practice of there's this interior that I'm going to protect and maintain and cultivate, and there's this exterior that is somehow a threat or separate from me. Our practice is a seamless circle. Our practice is all-encompassing. It's a free, open zone of wakefulness. Not trying to blot out anything, really. So wakefulness means crisp and clear is the desired energy. Are you crisp and clear at 5:20 in the morning on these cushions? A few of you are, maybe. Some people have that. And nonetheless, we muster a crisp and clear energy. We meet that murkiness with crisp and clear energy. So the next element of deepening, don't feed the judging or the perfectionistic mind. Human beings contain a bottomless potential to be dissatisfied. We can be dissatisfied in paradise. Or maybe that's a contradiction, because if you're dissatisfied, then paradise, if it was to exist, is just gone. We have a bottomless potential for dissatisfaction. We have to know that that mode is always available. We always can shift into the mode of this is not good enough, it's not quite right, things are off. You will never lose the capacity to see lack. And so, being that that's the case, and that we encounter the truth of this in our practice here, let the dissatisfied mode, whether that be around your body, your mind, your practice, other people, the environment, let it be like a faucet you choose not to turn on. It's in your room. You know if you turn it on, what's going to come out of it. Choose not to turn it on. Let it be like a faucet that you turn off when it starts leaking. Oh, there it is again. Because you know, or you will deepen your knowing that this is not fact, this dissatisfaction, this perfectionistic judgment. This is just way of seeing. Isn't that what the Affirming Faith and Mind poem was telling us from 1500 something years ago? Cast aside opinions, and the Buddha Dharma is clear. It's easy to say. Our judgments and perfectionisms are the mind overesteeming its limited perspective. How am I the authority on what sucks? How am I the authority on how my practice should be better? Because I thought it, but I can think anything. So our judgments and perfectionisms tend to become fixations. Fixation meaning it's like a thought or a belief stakes us to some dry and parched ground. and we can't quite get any further because we keep being limited by our own judgment, by our own fixed belief that things should be different. So we're tethered to dry and parched ground. Tie ourselves up without rope. So if you're thinking, well, this is a terrible Zendo, you could just play with that and think the opposite. This is an amazing Zendo. Why do that? Positive energy is more skillful. Neither one is ultimately true, but positive energy is more skillful. Notice the effect in your body-mind. So don't feed the judging or the perfectionistic mind. And like with the mind that wants to plan and worry, at the very least you could say, oh, there's judging mind. Hello, judging mind. I know what you are. I know what you are. Or, hello, crabby one. I know it's way too early to be up. I know this lineage is slightly masochistic. It's okay. It's worth it. Then this leads into not knowing. Because if we suspend, maybe that's a better word than renounce. Suspend past and future. Suspend, turn off the faucet of judging and perfectionistic mind, then well, what are we left with? You don't need to know what a sound is. You don't need to know where it's coming from. You don't need to know what's coming next. You don't even need to know if you like it or not. You're served a meal. You don't even need to know what you think about that meal. Why do we think we need to know what we think? Flavor lights up the tongue regardless. Texture fills the hands regardless. If the true, the good, the beautiful, the textures of life depended on what we thought about them, this would be a very sorry universe. The sweet is sweet and the sour is sour. You can't think your way around that. Don't need to know if the last period was good or bad. Don't need to know if this one is good or bad. You really don't need to know. Don't need to know about Zen or Buddhism or what the chants mean. And not knowing, of course, to say something like this is so simple, to say it, but to inhabit it is actually a time of profound spirituality. Because thought or something fears a nakedness of being. We meet some kind of trembling discomfort or some version of that when we take off our word clothing, when we shelve our predictions and our assumptions, and we're just here undefendedly. Something about that makes something in us uncomfortable. But this not knowing is not a stupidity. It's a listening stance. Discover moment by moment what you are. Discover moment by moment what's true. So, to review the list as I close here. Intention, guiding attention, guided by your vow, your heart that wishes to wake up and know a deeper truth, to know the Buddha's light. If attention is not companioned with intention, it will just do what it always has done. It will habitually roam. Along with that, we're renouncing past and future. You can't do anything about the past. You can learn from it. But that doesn't mean thinking about the same situation for the 1,000th time. Relaxing. Inhabiting the texture that we are, along with alertness. I'm suggesting you experiment with eyes open. At the very least, just let them be slightly open and downcast. That'll make a difference. If you are kind of fuzzy-headed and have a thick, kind of heavy mind state, eyes wide open, like Bodhidharma is a good practice. Don't judge. Don't indulge perfectionism. At the very least, don't believe it. Don't let yourself get tethered by a belief that things are supposed to be different. And then allowing things to present themselves. This is what we mean by awareness. Awareness is not like a mental operation where we're like scanning our experience and analyzing it all and tracking it like, okay, there are 4 sensations in my left toe and 3 sounds in the right corner and there's a feeling of this here. It's not like that at all. It's interfused with everything. We just cover that over all the time with our minding. Right now, your knees are presenting themselves. Your hands are presenting themselves. Sounds are presenting themselves. Your heartbeat is presenting itself. And just dialing out the static. Even the static is just awareness presenting itself as static. This is a time in Sesshin, and I don't know how long this will remain a time. That depends on each of us, where we often are kind of outside of the fruits of it. We're standing in sort of the crummy entryway, moldy, crummy entryway that's sort of uncomfortable. And yet if we persist in this most simple receptivity, then we begin to be freshened and enlivened by the taste of Dharma. Please have confidence in that and take it beyond confidence. Make it real for yourself.